Welcome back to An Engineer's Life, Episode 18, Optimizing Your Life. In this clip, I will share tips on how you can get more results for less effort. Results are guaranteed. If, for any reason, you are not totally satisfied, I will refund your money. The first thing you should always ask before hitting the play button or starting any other activity is, why bother? Is there anything in this clip that will pay back for the effort? The answer to you is absolutely yes. If you only pick up one new idea and it saves you only 5 minutes it takes to watch this clip, the effort will be paid back. However, if you stay tuned to the end, I will show you how I personally save 1,000 hours every year by using one very simple technique. Let us begin with a concept you are familiar with and expand on it. That is, biorhythms. You should know whether, for example, you are a morning person or an evening person. I am a morning person, often getting up at 4 a.m. or even earlier to write or travel. Yes, I can sometimes get a win later in the afternoon, but mornings are when I am at my best for creative work such as writing, which is more demanding than doing accounting, answering emails, making phone calls, and so on. So my first tip is to arrange your day to the extent possible to put the most intellectually demanding activities when you are at your peak. That may mean getting up earlier to do those things before the office gets busy, or staying later until after people leave. So, how do we know when the peak is, and how it compares with off-peak performance? Let us begin with manufacturing, where productivity and quality are both regularly measured. Industrial engineers have found that manufacturing plants have biorhythms too. On the average 24/7 operation, the peak occurs not just in the morning, but more specifically, at 15 minutes after the first morning break on a Tuesday. Of course, every plant is different and your mileage may vary, as they say. Yet the point is that plants have operators, and operators are people, and just as people have peaks and valleys, so does production. Now we turn to the harder question of personal productivity. Here, some professions are a bit easier to quantify than others. Computer coding is one example. You can simply count the lines of quality finished code produced in an hour. There could be as much as a 2-to-1 difference between peaks and valleys. Authors, such as myself, can count finished pages. At my peak, around 9 a.m., I can write more than 2 finished pages per hour. Earlier, say 8 a.m., I am not warmed up enough and may only produce half of that. Later, say 10 a.m., I am already starting to get tired and again may produce only half of the peak. Of course, your mileage may vary. Maybe some mundane activities are not so sensitive. Maybe some activities have different peak times than others. The point here is to learn about yourself. Be sensitive to the tiniest shifts in attention, which are your first clue to sagging productivity. The amount of sleep you get has a huge effect on how productive you are, as well as the quality of your work. It is well documented that many people do not get enough sleep, and that can have serious health consequences in addition to compromising the quality of life. Some of it has to do with poor sleep hygiene, such as lights or computer screens or stress in the hour or two before bedtime. Of course, unavoidable health and life issues can make getting a good night's sleep also a challenge. Still, to the extent possible, arrange your day to ramp down slowly over the last 1 to 2 waking hours. The takeaway here is you cannot make time by cutting back on sleep. Your quality of productive work will suffer, as well as your quality of life. There are only 24 hours to every day, and 8 of them belong to sleep. Make the best of the remaining 16, but don't neglect the balance of life priorities as we discussed in episode 8. So, how about biorhythms on a larger scale, such as an entire lifetime? Here, again, we are in well-documented territory. The peak lifetime earnings are around the achievement of a master's degree. Less time in school means more work years, but at a lower pay. More time in school means you eventually will not have enough work years to pay back not only the lost years in school, but the extra cost of school. Of course, there are many exceptions. Computer coders and photographers may or may not benefit from schooling beyond high school. In the computer case, you can learn coding on your own. In the photography case, it is sometimes as good to work as an apprentice to a successful studio as it is to go to school. Of course, there are many exceptions. It depends on the degree. In general, engineering is a pretty solid profession. In general, the arts are not as well rewarded. Of course, optimizing a life around peak earnings may not give a satisfying life. So the answer you get for an optimum path depends on the dependent criteria you choose. Money would give you one answer. Happiness may give you an entirely different answer. While we are not always in good control of external stress, we should at least be aware of it and its effects on productivity. However, stress is not entirely negative. If you had none, you would be bored. However, it's not entirely positive either. Too much of a good thing is not a good thing. If you are constantly fighting fires, as they say, you will not be in a great place for quality work. So, can we control stress? The answer is, to some extent, yes. The easiest way is to learn how to say no. Don't take on more and more just because somebody asked you to help, even if it is the boss or a charity. I am sure that many of you think, I know many of these things. I am sure that many of you are thinking, this is all common sense. Perhaps, but common sense is not always commonly applied. So, how can you put a measure on what you actually do compared to what you might want to do? One way is to simply take a poll of what you are doing through the day. Set a timer to go off every 30 minutes and categorize what you are doing, such as eating, emails, watching TV, and so on. Many of us would be shocked at how much time is spent on screens, whether they are social media or Netflix. So, I will give you a personal tip from my life on improving productivity. Limit TV. For about 30 years, I only watched the very occasional movie at a theater in addition to about 1 hour per week of TV. No news, no sports, and no sitcoms. I don't really think I missed a thing. That does not mean that one has to work every hour of every day. I would take regular hikes in the woods and come back feeling refreshed. This nearly zero TV habit helped me save 20 hours a week compared to the average American. Now, I do watch a bit more TV lately. 40 minutes of total junk every day. Think Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Followed by 30 minutes of college-level courses from the great courses. Then I read a bit before going to sleep. So, now you know my secret. Do something different than watching TV. Thank you so very much for walking with me on this journey. Stay tuned for more in the Life of an Engineer series. See you next time.